So glad to be joined once again by Kyle Hightower. And Kyle, last time we spoke, nobody was saying what they're saying about the Patriots now. They've been on a tear as of late. They're chasing the top spot in the AFC. To what do you attribute to this recent run that they've been on?
Defense. Classic, hallmark and calling card of Bill Belichick's good teams. The defense has stepped up, and they've really taken the pressure off of a young quarterback, a rookie quarterback who's playing well but still finding his way in this league. But the defense allowing 16.1 points per game, the lowest or the fewest in the league. Taking the ball away from offenses. They're just making life so much easier on Mac Jones, and that's allowing him to kind of just settle in, not do too much, go to his key weapons, and just move this offense along enough to be able to score points enough while the defense holds them down, and they win football games 5 in a row now.
One of the fun things, I was watching Tom Brady's In the Arena series, or at least the first episode of it, and I was reminded of how many incredibly talented defenses the Patriots have had, not only over his tenure, but that trend also continuing. I mean, just these legends who led the way and picked things up when Tom Brady was finding his way in the league way back when. What is it about Bill Belichick's defenses that is so confusing, so challenging? I mean, not only just having the talent there, but schematically.
While I'm loath to use Bill Belichick's favorite phrase, they're doing their job. I mean, they absolutely are. They're staying within themselves. They're not trying to do too much. Guys like J.C. Jackson, a guy who came as an undrafted free agent, it's kind of another calling card of Bill Belichick's defense, is found these guys, these diamonds in the rough, who come in and just find their way in the league. Kyle Duggar, a guy he found in Lenore Ryan University. Who knows about that place? He found a guy who's playing well at safety. Find those guys who are those diamond in the roughs, pairing them with those key veterans, those guys who make plays, who have been in it for a while, who teach them the ropes of how these teams, go, or how these Patriot teams go about playing football. He kind of makes it all work. He makes all the chess pieces fit together. He's doing it again. And he's got guys who are listening, who are really dialed in, who are really buying into the system. And it's really helped his Patriots kind of find their way quickly and at the right time in the season.
How much credit does Bill Belichick actually deserve for finding some of these diamonds in the rough defensively that seem to come out of nowhere? So many of them have hit in past years, and you're seeing it again this season. Is it really just that he has an ability or an eye to see something in players that other people don't see? Is it the coaching network that he's so deeply entrenched in? I mean, why can he find guys that other teams can't?
I think it's a combination of all those things you mentioned. I think that, Belichick's been in the game for so long, that he has that experience, obviously. But he's also come from places and coached in places where he's had to kind of mine for those guys. When he was coming up to this league, coming from, his dad playing at the Naval Academy, or the coach of the Naval Academy. That's not a hotbed of athletic talents. You have to kind of go and find guys to make that program good. In the NFL, he came up through the ranks, having to be a special teams coordinator first, be a defensive guy, a coach, and then a coordinator first. He learned the system, to learn how to build defenses, how to build teams. And I think that experience, combined with the great scouting department that the Patriots have had for years, and being able to send those guys out, trusting in the people around him to kind of say, hey, take a look at this guy. I know he's not from the Alabama, he's not from the Ohio State type of universities, but this guy is somebody who can fit into our system, and he's one of our guys. And I think Belichick looks for those people, and, we put all those things together, it makes it work. He brings them in, and he puts them to work.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about how his formative experiences might have influenced how he looks for and assesses talent. I mean, his relationship with Nick Saban, I think, is really interesting, too, going back decades and decades and decades. I mean, to know a guy for 40 years or to work with a guy for 40 plus years or whatever the number is amazing when you think about it. So it seems like he's kind of got it all covered from those diamonds in the rough all the way to some of the marquee players whenever the Patriots can get them. What have you kind of taken away from the last couple of weekends as it relates specifically offensively to Mac Jones and his continued development?
I think that while the defense has certainly helped him, the fact that he has not a dominant running game behind him, but guys who are capable of getting those yards in first and second down, has really taken, again, the pressure off of him to kind of not to try to do too much. Damian Harris is, he's played well. He's had some injury things and some COVID issues, but he's back in. The rookie, Ramondre Stevenson, while Damian Harris was out, 100-yard game, first of his career. was able to get there and have a sustainable running game there. And of course, too, the offensive line has gotten healthy at the right time. Trent Brown is back after, he played in the first game of the season. He went into reserve and had some issues with his calf. He's now back in the mix there on the right side of the line. Everybody, on the left side of the line is more intact. They moved over Mike Onwenu, a rookie, over to that side of the line, shifted some things around. David Andrews there in the middle at center. It's been a stalwart there. The offensive line is healthy. The running game is there supporting him. And again, Matt Jones, he's not throwing the ball downfield. He's not trying to go for the big home run plays. He's not that guy. He could develop to be that guy. We'll see what happens. But right now, there's asking just that dink and dunk, that slow, short intermediate routes. He's mastered those. He's finding guys at the right time. And another guy, the tight end, Hunter Henry, 5 touchdowns in the last 8 games, or 7 touchdowns in the last 8 games after having none in the first 3. Another free agent they brought in who has kind of found his way and is finding his way in this system. Again, just it seems to whenever you're ready to count these Patriots out, they find to put these pieces together at the right time of the season. It's hard to catch momentum at the exact same right time they need to be able to move and to get into that playoff picture, and they're here once again.
What would you say to somebody who looks at their schedule and says, okay, everybody kind of pump the brakes here. They're getting really impressive contributions from some of these rookies, these young guys. Bill Belichick is trusting these young guys more than he's shown in the past that he's willing to do. But you look at who they've played. I mean, you're not talking about, some of the best teams in the league. I mean, is there a case to be made that over the next couple of games in their schedule, they could be tested even further? Or do you think that, they really have turned a corner and are marching their way towards the top seed in the AFC?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, during this 5-game winner streak, the teams they beat maybe one true playoff contender, and the Chargers. You can probably throw the Browns in there too. They're a team that still has time to turn things around. But so say two of the 5 victories against playoff contending teams. This next 5 games is going to be where the season's made for them. You start off and get Tennessee Titans coming up on Sunday. Leading the AFC. A team who put them out of the playoffs 2 years ago. Tom Brady's last game. They're on his. They're in Gillette Stadium. So there's a lot there, a lot of history there. Mike Vrabel, he's the head coach, former Patriot guy. I'm sure Belichick wants to beat him. Right after that, you go to Buffalo for one of 2 times in the season. Who was leading the AFC East, but is still right there on your heels, can take it away from you at any time. And then you also have, you have one more tough game in there, late in the season. So. Against the Indianapolis Colts, you were escaping me for a second. Indianapolis Colts, who just whipped the Buffalo Bills 41-15 last week. So, that's 4 tough games in there. You got Miami and the Jets in there, who are, you count those easy wins later in the season. But, 4 tough games in 5, in 5 weeks. You have a bye week in there as well. But this is really going to test these Patriots over the next 5 games to see who they are. There's a lot to be said. Sure, those 5 wins is 5 wins in this league, but the competition level wasn't at the highest. These next 5 games are going to be at the very top level, and we're going to see what the Patriots are made of.
There was so much drama around Vrabel and Brady's last game and Tennessee, like you mentioned, and Bill Belichick, and things it seemed like on the outside had really deteriorated at that point in the season a couple years ago when Tom Brady was on his way out the door. Outside of Bill Belichick, remind me, how many veteran players are really going to have kind of like that sour taste in their mouth as it relates to wanting to beat Vrabel, beat Tennessee, remembering that moment? Because it does seem from the outside that they really are relying on so many of these young guys that they have been hesitant to turn to in the past. I mean, is that a narrative that carries a lot of weight, I guess, heading into another matchup with Tennessee?
I think it does in the fact that, Belichick is the head of this team, and, they follow his lead. And, he's going to mention it. He may not mention it to us. He's going to downplay it. Obviously, that's just his style. But, he wants to, he doesn't like the idea of guys who made their bones in this league in his program, kind of pushing him around. He wants this game. Make no mistake about that. And also, too, there's about a dozen players, to answer your question, who are still, veterans who are still in the program. And, again, the veterans the best Patriot teams are always veteran-led teams. And, these guys are going to, say, hey, this is who we're playing this week. Here's the history. Here's what we have to go off of. And any team, any sport, they're going to use whatever motivation they can to kind of propel themselves. And it's motivation. And at this point of the season, the kind of the dog days of the regular season, you need whatever you can to kind of push you through some of these games. The playoffs are, everybody's thinking playoffs now. Everybody's standings watching now. And I think it's going to be a factor for sure coming into a tough game that probably a lot of the eyes in the NFL will be on this week.
Yeah, last one before we let you go, because I don't want to keep you too long on a holiday week. As the playoffs are coming into view here, the Patriots have been on a run lately. How good is this team?
I think they're definitely. I wouldn't put them in the mix to say coming out of the AFC right now. I think there are some teams at the top that you still have to kind of watch. I think Kansas City. I know they've been to the Super Bowl the last 2 years, but they're seeming to be kind of catching traction at the right time. Again, led by their defense. It's Patrick Mahomes kind of struggled early in the season. But I think this Patriots team is very good. Okay, I'm loath to put them in the conversation again to make a run for the AFC title game. It's because they have a rookie quarterback. That said, if this defense keeps playing as well as it does, and if they come out of these 5 game stretch and say like win 4 out of 5 or even take all 5, and it's defensive led, my perspective and my opinion definitely changes. So I'll reserve opinion on how far they can go to see how well this defense does over the next 5 games. I think we have a very good Patriot team that could be pushed over the hump if the defense continues to sustain, stays healthy, and finishes the season strong.
We're going to have to continue this trend of checking in with you about every 5 games in the season. So maybe we'll see how the defense does with some quality opponents coming up over the next couple of weeks and check in with you again, if that's all right with you.
Sounds good, Carolyn. Anytime.
All right. Kyle Hightower, thank you very much, and enjoy the holiday weekend.
You too. Have a great one.